Welcome back to Dan's Messy Garage. Today is going to be part 6 of me working on the 302 Ford engine garage rebuild. I have all the bolts spread out here, and I did that when I was looking for the oil pan bolts, but I did find the oil pan bolts. They were in a separate container over in a pile of parts over here, but I found them. So I got the oil pan on. Wasn't anything worth videoing, just tightening the bolts. But today I'm going to start with installing the freeze plugs that go in the 3 holes on each side of the block. I already took some sandpaper and sanded down the openings. I'll put some sealer on the freeze plugs. I bought a brass freeze plug set, and then I'm gonna put a little, like I said, sealer on the plugs, pound them flush in the block. After that, I'm gonna be going through the heads, the GT40 heads. I'm gonna pull the valves out and do a garage valve lap on them, and then install them. Here we go. I'm going to show you how I do a garage valve lap job on these heads. This is a GT40 head from a 93 Mustang. I don't know what the 71 means, but they're from like a 93 Cobra Mustang. Alright, and I'm also going to show you how to CC a combustion chamber. If you notice, I have the head sitting on an angle. That's because I want to take a plate, plastic plate with a hole in it. I want to put that over the combustion chamber with the hole like at the highest point of the chamber, because we're going to take a known volume of liquid, in this case plain water, be any liquid, and start with a known volume of liquid, see how much it takes to fill in that chamber, and that tells us how big that chamber is in cc's. Now, years ago, I spent $20 and I bought a beret or barrette. Very worthwhile, $20 in my opinion. This thing just sits on a wall up there. Only gets used, once in a great while. Maybe not even once a year. It's fantastic though. So it's got graduations on here. I'm going to fill it all the way to the top. Let's see if I can get this in frame here. To 0. These are milliliters. And that'll be 100 milliliters. So, let me pour some water in here. Like I said, it could be any liquid. I've used trans fluid before, or oil out of a car, paint thinner. What seemed to be working well for me was just plain windshield washer solvent, the blue stuff, because you can see it pretty easy. It was cheap, and you can pour it right back in container too. pour back what you don't use. Because what gets used in that cylinder head is just thrown away. You know, I don't try to save it. Okay, I'm trying to get this to fill up. And look at this pull lock. I'm trying to fill it up and I have the thing open on the bottom. It's not going to fill that way, idiot. Okay, pull lock. Try this again. So now, try filling this up with the valve closed. Nope. It filled up real quick. Now what I'll do, see, I overfilled it. So I'm going to let some water out. There's already a wet spot on the floor, so this doesn't matter. Until that gets down to the 0 mark. I think you can see that. Okay. I have it so the top of the parallax bubble, or forgot what that term's called, but the top edge of that is on 0. So now, let me set this aside. Try not to dump it out. And I'm going to smear grease along here to seal the plate to the head. That's just to keep the water from running out. Now you don't want to put so much grease on here that it goes inside this chamber, because we're trying to find out what the CC of that chamber is without stuff in it. So, I think that's good. Wipe that edge off. Alright. Now I should be able to push the plate on there. Get the hole up here in the top edge. Push it on. We'll try this. I don't know if I have enough grease around these edges, but I'm not afraid to fail, so we'll try. Here we go. I'm going to fill that cavity. We're starting out with 100 milliliters of liquid in this beret. Forgot to mention, you have to do this with a spark plug in there. Just like you have to fill the beret with this nozzle being closed off. Okay. It's filling up nicely. Okay, stopped it, and the liquid's right there at the hole. I can see inside the hole, liquid's right, it's perfect. All right, so we are at, see if I can get this in frame, I'm looking through the camera. All right, this is 65.8. So we used up 65.8 cc's. So 65 cc chambers. And I'm looking, there's notches, might even in frame pointing to that. Nope. Okay. Here that indicate the how much you could mill the head off, and there's still a lot here. Oh, it's down here too. So these heads have not been milled down a lot, because you could mill it, make that chamber smaller. 65.8 is good for me. It's just going to be running on an 87 octane gas. Let me write that number down before I forget it. Find a pencil. Ah, look at that, I found a pencil, not a pen. All right. So, head, 65.8 cc's. All right. Now, you can also measure the CCs of a gasket. You take a flat plate and you take another plate with a hole in it, sandwich the gasket in between there, fill up the cavity. That tells you exactly how much the gasket would be. Now that's in an uncompressed state. When the gasket's in the engine, it's compressed. Online, the gasket makers will give you the CCs of their compressed gasket, but it's fun just to check it. I'll have to look up the gasket online to see what it is. And in fact, while we're at this, I can take this over to the engine and we can see the piston at top dead center. Now my pistons happen to be above top dead center, and I can show you how we can solve that. But let this water out of here. That's one of the nice things about using something like water. You don't have to worry about it when you clean it up. Now if I used oil, I'd have a mess, because I'd have that spot down there on the floor where I was an idiot. Then I'd have this mess to contend with. So, all right, so let me get this camera set up over on the engine, and we'll see the piston at top dead center. Okay, if you hear a noise in the background, it's raining pretty hard out there. We're going to do the same thing on the engine that we did on the cylinder head. I'm going to put grease around here. This is at top dead center. I verified that with a straight edge across here. I'm going to put the plate on. Start with a known 100 milliliters of water and see how much it takes to fill in this valve relief cavity. Then we're going to take that reading, add it to the head reading, 65.8, and add the gasket CCs. Now I'm using a Felpro gasket, 8548 PT2, and I already looked up the spec. That's 10.169 cc's compressed. So we take this, plop it on here with the hole at the top of that relief. My beret zeroed out. It's exactly 100 milliliters. We fill the cavity. Okay, almost dripped out of there. I caught it though. And we have 6. Can you see that? 6. So there's 6 cc's of water in there, top dead center. Now, there's actually less because the piston comes up 8 thousandths out of the hole. And that isn't going to be, let's see, what is 0.45 divided by 8? Divided by 8. 0.5. 10, 6. Maybe a half a cc. All right. If it's the gasket's 0.045 thick and it's 10 cc's, if the gasket was half of that, it would be 5. Half of that would be 2.5. So maybe a cc. I'll have to correct the video, but we're going to use 6 for now. We're going to assume everything's zero decked, because it's too early in the day for me to be using math like that. So 10.16 on the head gasket, 65.8. Let me add all that up. 65.8, 6, 10.169, 81.969. We're going to drop the 969 and call it 81. 81 cc total combustion area. Now the engine is a stock bore block, stock stroke, 4-inch bore, 3-inch stroke. That is 4945 cc's. Divide that by 8 and you get 618 cc's in each cylinder. So we had 618 and 81, we get 9, we get 699. So now we take 699 and divide that by 81. All right, 699 divided by 81. And my 8.63. 8.63. So this has 8.63 to 1 compression, doing the math. That is absolutely, totally fine for 87 octane. No issues at all. All right, folks. I said that we were going to do some garage valve grinding. We're going to go do that now. All right, first we got to remove the valve springs. And the way to do that, before you put a spring compressor on it, you whack each valve with a hammer. They all sound the same. They're different diameters of valves going into different cavities. So that's why you're hearing the difference in sound. But the sounds were the same. Like if I hit all the exhaust valves, they sound the same. Intakes, that one there does sound a little different. There could have some debris under it. We're going to find out. All right, so we got the valve spring loose from the stem. Or do we? No. I was hitting the valve stem. We need to hit the valve spring to break that free from the locks. All right. Anyways, you take a valve spring compressor. I've got this old thing. Had it forever. Works great. And you put it so it's on the valve face and on the retainer. You compress the spring. Then you take these little lock things off the valve. Keep a magnet handy. And I don't know if it's in frame or not, but those are the valve locks. Then you release the spring. Everything falls. Because I'm doing this over the edge of the workbench. But I got the spring, retainer, and this still has the rotators. I'm going to leave all that alone. And what I'm checking for now is I'm trying to wiggle the valve back and forth in the guide. I don't feel any movement. That's great. Wonderful. Grand. All right, so what we're going to do now is we're going to take some valve grinding compound. Can you guys see this? Okay. And I'm going to put it on the surface of the valve where it hits the head. Whoops. Way too much. Perfect. Spread it around. little bit on the seat. I'll show you the other side in a minute here. I'm going to stick this through. Okay, now, old school way is you take one of these tools with a suction cup, you put it on the valve, and you spin it back and forth. These dang things just don't stick well. I've got 3 different tools. Well, let's make that 4. 4 of these different things. None of the suction cups grab very well. So, alternate method, garage style. Take a drill, hook it on the valve. Now, some people get upset because you're putting side forces on the stem and you're going to wear the guide out. Yeah. You guys do what you want in your garage. We're in here in my garage. If you're worried about all those side forces and things, put a piece of rubber hose on here and in here. So I'm not going to do any of that. So now I'm going to spin the valve and I'm going to push it in and out. I'll take you around the other side so you can watch that. Okay, I'm working right here. Now I'm going to reverse it, go the other direction. Okay, let's take a peek. Valve out of there. You got to clean off the compound. And you examine the wear pattern. You want things to be this equal width, equal color. And if everything is correct, which it looks like it is, and get my fat head in the way here. Yep. That one's done. Just like that. Now, you got to clean this off really good because you don't want any of that valve grinding compound to get on the stem of the valve and wear out the guide. So let me get some cleaning solution here and some oil. Clean that off. Clean in here. Oil the stem up. Come on. Get her in there. Perfect. Move on to the next one. Now you put this keepers on the springs the opposite way you took them off, of course. But we'll get the next one off there. Get my magnet ready so I don't drop the stuff. Probably going to drop it anyways, though. I dropped the magnet. Okay, I dropped it all. All right. So, pop that spring off. I caught it that time. Spring retainer. For some reason this guy's a 2-piece retainer. I guess the other one did too. All right. And, you know, Murphy, right? I got one keeper. The other one's here somewhere. Push on. Okay, so we take the intake valve out. Oh, let me check the side clearance. I mean, that's beautiful. There is like nothing. There is no movement. If they're all like that, I'll be happy. I'm going to wipe that with my finger, wipe that with my finger. Whoops, way too much again. Way too much. Yeah, it'd be perfect. Flop that around there. That in there. Now, these are unported heads. I'm not going to port them. I'm going to run them the way they are. Get this on here. Here we go. Opposite way. Check it. Quick wipe. Looks good. That looks good. See, there's no like pitting. There's no dark spots. There's no mist areas. No cracks. I mean, you're looking for a lot of things that don't look right. And how do you know what looks right? Well, if it's not cracked and it's smooth and it has the same consistent pattern, sheenness, then it's okay. I mean, this, I'm not doing this engine in a super professional way. If it was a $high race engine, yeah, I'd send these heads to a shop and have them do a 3 or 5 angle valve job on them and mill them. And I always did my own porting, but this is going to be stock rebuild. Going to be fine. Oil on the valve stem. Set that back in there. Okay. Now, I'm not going to bore you with all of it. I got to do that 16 more times. And you put the spring on. You use the coil spring compressor. You squish the spring. And then these are tapered locks. One goes on each side. There's a groove on the valve that holds them all together. Like that. And then you release the compressor. You're done. So I'm going to do all that. And I'll come back to you later. I'm going to install the head on the engine. I'm very happy to report that all those valves in the heads, great shape. It all went nice. All the guides are tight. Okay, so back to this. I want to make sure that this surface is clean and no grit. I've already wiped it down a couple times with starting fluid. Cleaned off my hands somewhat. I don't feel any grit. Gasket. Important. You don't put any sealant on these. They go on dry. And what I'm looking for is the word front. There it is. See if I can show you guys. Maybe not, but it says front right here. You want to make sure that that goes to the front of the engine. All right, so that's on, because the difference, there's some holes in the gasket here for water to circulate through the head that aren't up in the front. They're only in the back. And if you have that flopped around, back cylinders are going to run hot, it's going to overheat, blah, blah. All right, so the words front's on the front. That fits over these guide pins. Now, that head is a heavy bastard. And I'm 72 years old. So I'm not as strong as I used to be. And the head is 60 or 65 pounds. So I'm going to try to set it on here without dropping it, get it on these guide pins. Well, let me find out if I can do that. Okay, I cleaned off the head surface. It's dry. I don't feel any grit. So I'm going to take this over here. Try to flop it onto those pins. Huh. Normally it doesn't go that easy. All right. Now, this had torque to yield head bolts. You're not supposed to reuse them. I'm not going to reuse them. Just going to put them in here. I have some new ones on order. And when I get here in a couple of days, I'll put the correct ones in. But I want to put some in here now so that the head doesn't fall off the engine. Different size bolts. These bottom ones, those go into the water jacket areas of the engine. I grabbed the wrong bolt. That's why I took that out. So when you put these in, you gotta put thread sealer on the threads so water doesn't leak out. The older 289 302 blocks had blind passages, so the bolts did not go into the water or the coolant, antifreeze, whatever. There's 10 bolts. There's 5 small ones, 5 longer ones. And like I said, I'm not going to keep these in here. They're just in here for video purposes only. When the new ones come in a couple days, I'll put them in. I got to get a socket. I don't know what size they are, so I'll grab a couple sockets. Well, what's this? Bigger than that, whatever that is. That was 11/16. I need a 3/4. Bingo. Oh, what is this? What is going on here, folks? Okay, they were 11/16, like I told you. All right, so let me get this little guy here. There's a torque sequence. You kind of go opposites, center out in a big spiral. Put the right socket on. Got the right socket, but I didn't put it on my tool. Okay, those are not tight. They're not torqued. This little 1/4-inch impact isn't going to be compressing that gasket or anything to worry about. So I'm going to do the same thing for the other head. And that's it, guys. That's going to be the end of part 6. I mean, I don't have the bolts. I don't have the push rods. Nothing else I can really do until I get the parts. So thanks for watching. Come back for part 7 when I should be putting in lifters, push rods, rockers, head bolts, intake, on and on and on. Bye.